never went to estate sales. They felt too personal, like digging through someone's life after they were gone. But that Tuesday morning, something pulled me to Mrs. Henderson's house on Maple Street. Maybe it was the call I'd been waiting for. My sister promised to phone when Mom's test results came back. That was 3 hours ago. 3 hours of staring at my phone, watching it stay silent. 3 hours of that familiar weight settling in my chest. The knowledge that when it mattered, I was always alone. Mrs. Henderson had been my neighbor for 15 years. I'd wave when I saw her in her garden, but we never really talked. Now she was dead, and strangers were going through her things. It seemed wrong, but I needed to get out of my apartment. The walls were closing in, and the silence was too loud. The house looked different in the gray morning light, bigger somehow, like it had grown in the weeks since the funeral. The windows were dark, reflecting nothing. The front door, which I remembered being bright red, looked almost black now, like dried blood. I parked across the street and sat in my car for 10 minutes, engine running. Other people walked in and out carrying boxes, talking and laughing. Normal people doing normal things. I envied them. My phone buzzed. For a second, my heart jumped. But it was just a spam call. I declined it and stuffed the phone in my pocket. The front door stood open when I finally crossed the street. No one greeted me. I just walked in, like I belonged there. The cold hit me first. Not October cold. Something else. Something that crawled under my skin and wrapped around my bones. The house felt empty, but not the way empty houses usually feel. This felt hollow, hungry. The living room was full of Mrs. Henderson's things. Furniture covered in white sheets like ghosts. Tables loaded with knickknacks and photographs. People moved through the space, picking up items, examining them, putting them down. Their voices seemed muted, like the house was swallowing the sound. I wandered through the rooms, not really looking at anything. The kitchen still smelled like the cookies Mrs. Henderson used to bake. The dining room had a grandfather clock that had stopped at 3:17. Everything felt frozen in time, waiting. In what must have been her study, I found a small table in the corner. Most of the items had price tags, but this table seemed forgotten. Dust covered everything. Old books, a jewelry box, some photographs yellowed with age, and a mirror. It was small, maybe 6 inches across, with an ornate silver frame that looked antique. Unlike everything else, it wasn't dusty. The surface gleamed like it had just been polished. I picked it up without thinking. Ice shot through my fingers. The metal was so cold it burned, but I couldn't let go. My hand was frozen to the frame. I looked at my reflection and saw myself. Brown hair pulled back, tired eyes, the lines around my mouth that had appeared this year. But something was wrong. The eyes in the mirror were darker than mine, empty, like looking into deep water at night. I blinked hard and looked again. The face looking back wasn't mine anymore. It had my features, but twisted. The skin was gray and slack. The mouth hung open in a silent scream, but it was the eyes that made my blood freeze. They were holes, dark, empty holes where eyes should be. I tried to drop the mirror, but my fingers wouldn't move. The reflection moved its mouth, trying to speak. No sound came out, but I could see what it was saying. Help me. Then my hand jerked free, and the mirror crashed to the floor. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet house. Glass scattered across the hardwood, reflecting the overhead light in 1,000 pieces. I knelt to clean it up, embarrassed. But when I looked at the broken pieces, I saw something impossible. In each shard, I could see movement, shadows that shouldn't exist, shifting just at the edge of vision. I stood up fast, my heart hammering. When I turned to leave, I stopped. The doorway was gone. Where the entrance to the study had been, there was now just wall. Faded flowered wallpaper, unbroken from floor to ceiling, like there had never been a door at all. I ran my hands over the wall, pushing against it. Solid plaster. Real. My breathing got shallow, and sweat broke out on my forehead despite the cold. "Excuse me?" I called out. "Hello?" My voice seemed to die a few feet from my mouth. The house absorbed it. I turned back to the room. It looked the same, but felt different. Smaller. The ceiling seemed lower, the walls closer together. The broken mirror on the floor caught the light wrong, like the pieces were moving on their own. That's when I heard it. A whisper, so soft I almost missed it. "You shouldn't have come here." I spun around, but the room was empty. Just me and Mrs. Henderson's forgotten things and the broken mirror glittering on the floor. "Hello?" I called again. "Is someone there?" The whisper came again, closer this time. It seemed to rise from the floorboards themselves. "We've been waiting for you." My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. No signal. The screen showed full bars, but when I tried to call 911, nothing happened. The phone was dead in my hands. I looked at the wall where the door used to be. Still solid, still real. I was trapped, and I wasn't alone. The room felt like it was breathing. I stood in the center, turning slowly, trying to find anything that made sense. The wall where the door had been looked like it had always been there. The wallpaper matched perfectly. Even the baseboards lined up. But I knew I'd walked through that doorway 5 minutes ago. "Think," I whispered to myself. "There has to be an explanation." But my voice sounded thin and scared, and it didn't make me feel better. The broken mirror pieces scattered across the floor kept catching my eye. In the lamplight, they almost seemed to pulse, like a heartbeat made of glass. I heard footsteps upstairs, slow, deliberate steps moving across the ceiling above me. Each footfall made the old house creak. I looked up, following the sound as it moved from one end of the room to the other. Then it stopped, directly overhead. "Hello?" I called up. "I'm stuck down here. The door. Something's wrong with the door." The footsteps started again, but now they were coming toward the stairs. I could hear them in the hallway, getting closer. I pressed my ear to the wall where the door used to be. Maybe I could hear the other people, the ones browsing the sale. But there was nothing, just my own heartbeat, loud and fast. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs and started coming down. 1 step, 2 steps. Each one made the house shake slightly. "Thank God," I said out loud. "Someone's coming." But as the footsteps got closer, something felt wrong. They were too heavy, too slow, like whoever was walking was carrying something impossibly heavy, or like they were hurt, dragging themselves step by step. I moved to where I thought the doorway should be, and waited. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs and started down the hallway toward me, but no one appeared. The footsteps stopped right outside where the door should be. I could hear breathing now, raspy, labored breathing, like someone trying to catch their breath. But still, no one came through, because there was no door for them to come through. "Please," I said, pressing both hands against the wall. "I'm in here. I can't get out." The breathing stopped. Then, from right on the other side of the wall, inches from my face, a voice whispered, "There is no door." I jerked back like I'd been slapped. The voice was wrong. Too old, too dry, like leaves crumbling. "What do you mean?" I asked. But I already knew what they meant. There was no door because there had never been a door. The room I was in didn't exist, not really. It was somewhere else, somewhere between the walls of the real house. The whisper came again, and this time it seemed to come from everywhere at once. You're not in the house anymore. You're in the spaces between, the places where lost things go. I looked around the room again. It looked the same as before, but now I noticed things I'd missed. The windows were wrong. They showed darkness outside, but it was still morning. The books on the shelves had no titles on their spines. The photographs on the table showed empty frames. I want to go home, I said, and hated how small my voice sounded. You are home, the voice replied. This is where you belong, with all the other lost things. The broken mirror pieces on the floor started moving. Not sliding, actually moving, lifting slightly off the ground and rearranging themselves. They formed a circle, then a spiral, the glass catching light that shouldn't exist. In the moving pieces, I could see faces, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all with the same empty, desperate expression I'd seen in my own reflection, all silent, screaming. Who are they? I whispered. The others who came before, the voice said. It sounded closer now, like whoever was speaking was standing right behind me. The ones who were looking for something to fill the emptiness inside them. I turned around, but no one was there. Just the small study with its covered furniture and forgotten objects. I wasn't looking for anything, I said. But that was a lie, and we both knew it. I had been looking for something. I'd been looking my whole life for a phone call that mattered, for someone who cared enough to check on me, for proof that I existed in someone else's world. You were empty, the voice said, and now it sounded almost kind. We could smell it on you from the moment you walked in. The loneliness, the waiting, the way you check your phone every few minutes hoping for something that never comes. My chest tightened. They were right. I did check my phone constantly. I did wait for calls that never came. I did feel empty most of the time, like there was a hole inside me that nothing could fill. Your sister won't call today, the voice continued. She's busy with her real life, her real family. Your mother's test results came back hours ago, but your sister decided it could wait until tomorrow to tell you. Maybe next week. Does it really matter when you find out? You're not really part of their lives anyway. Each word hit like a physical blow, because it was true. All of it. I was the afterthought, the obligation, the sister who got the news last, and the sympathy call that could wait. Stop, I whispered. You came here looking for something to take home, the voice said. Something to fill the empty spaces in your apartment, your life. We can give you that. We can fill all the empty spaces. The mirror pieces on the floor spun faster, and in their fractured surfaces, I could see myself as I really was. Alone in my apartment, waiting for calls that never came. Eating dinner by myself every night, going to bed with the TV on because the silence was too loud. You don't have to be empty anymore, the voice whispered. You can stay here, with us, with all the other lost things. You'll never be lonely again. And for a moment, it sounded tempting. Never waiting for the phone to ring. Never hoping someone would remember I existed. Never feeling that hollow ache in my chest when I realized I'd gone days without talking to another person. But then, I looked at the faces in the mirror pieces again. They weren't peaceful. They were trapped, screaming silently for help, just like the face I'd seen looking back at me. No, I said, and my voice was stronger than I expected. I want to leave. The mirror pieces stopped spinning. The room got colder. You can't leave, the voice said. And now it didn't sound kind anymore. It sounded hungry. You're already one of us. You just haven't admitted it yet. The walls began to close in. The walls moved slowly, like they were breathing. Each breath made the room a little smaller, the ceiling a little lower. I pressed my back against the wall where the door used to be, but it was solid, unyielding. This isn't real, I said out loud, trying to convince myself. Houses don't do this. Rooms don't just change. But even as I said it, I could feel the space shrinking around me. The air got thicker, harder to breathe. The temperature dropped until I could see my breath in small white puffs. The voice laughed, a sound like old paper tearing. Real? What's real? It asked. Is the emptiness in your life real? Is the way your family forgets you exist real? Is the sound of your phone not ringing real? I closed my eyes and tried to think rationally. There had to be an explanation. Maybe I'd hit my head when I dropped the mirror. Maybe I was unconscious on the floor of Mrs. Henderson's study while people stepped around me. But when I opened my eyes, the room was even smaller. I could almost touch the opposite wall now. The broken mirror pieces had reformed into a perfect circle on the floor. In their center, I could see something moving. Not a reflection, something actually moving under the glass, like looking into deep, dark water. Look closer, the voice whispered. See what's waiting for you. I didn't want to look, but my feet moved on their own. The mirror pieces glowed with their own light now, cold and blue like moonlight on snow. In the glass, I saw the estate sales still happening. People moved through Mrs. Henderson's house, looking at her things, making small talk about the weather. But they moved wrong, like actors who'd forgotten their lines. And their faces? When they turned toward the mirror, their faces were blank. No features at all, just smooth skin where eyes and mouths should be. They're not real, I breathed. None of it is real, the voice agreed. The sale, the people, the house itself, it's all just bait, a trap to catch things like you. Things like me? Empty things, lonely things, things that nobody would miss. The words hit harder than a slap, because they were true. If I disappeared right now, how long would it take for anyone to notice? My sister might wonder why I didn't answer my phone, but she'd probably assume I was busy. My coworkers would notice I wasn't at my desk, but they'd figure I was sick. Maybe, after a week, someone would check on me. Maybe. See? The voice whispered. You understand now. You're already gone. You just haven't stopped moving yet. The mirror showed me more. My apartment, empty and dark. My car in Mrs. Henderson's driveway, but now covered in dust, like it had been there for years. My life, continuing without me, and nobody noticing the difference. It doesn't hurt, the voice promised. You just stop. Stop waiting for calls that won't come. Stop hoping someone will remember you exist. Stop feeling that hollow ache where your heart used to be. The room was so small now, I could touch both walls with my arms outstretched. The ceiling brushed the top of my head. Soon, there would be no room at all. I looked down at the mirror circle one more time. The faces trapped in the glass stared back at me. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all with the same expression of resigned despair. But as I watched, one of the faces changed. It was a woman about my age, with dark hair and kind eyes. She pressed her face against the glass from the inside and mouthed a single word. Fight. Then she pointed behind me. I turned around and saw something I'd missed before. In the corner where two walls met, there was a crack. Just a hairline fracture in the wallpaper, but it glowed with warm yellow light. Real light. Sunlight. The voice noticed too. "No!" it hissed, and for the first time, it sounded afraid. "You can't. You're ours now." The walls pressed in faster, trying to crush me before I could reach the crack. But I dove forward, scraping my knees on the hardwood floor, and pressed my eye to the tiny fissure. Through it, I could see the real world, the actual estate sale, with actual people looking at Mrs. Henderson's actual things. I could see myself too, my real body, collapsed on the floor of the study with blood on my forehead from where I'd fallen when the mirror broke. A woman knelt beside me, checking my pulse. "Call 911, she told someone. "I think she hit her head." "I'm here!" I screamed, pressing my mouth to the crack. "I'm right here!" But they couldn't hear me. To them, I was just unconscious. They had no idea I was trapped in this space between spaces, this room that existed in the gaps of reality. The walls were almost touching now. In seconds, I'd be crushed. But the crack of light was still there, still glowing. I pressed my fingers against it and pulled. The crack widened slightly, just enough for me to get my hand through. On the other side, I could feel warm air, real air that smelled like coffee and autumn leaves instead of dust and decay. "You can't leave us!" the voice pleaded now, desperate. "We're your family now, the only family that wants you." But I kept pulling at the crack, tearing the wallpaper, making the hole bigger. The light grew brighter, and I could hear sounds from the real world. Voices, footsteps, someone calling for an ambulance. "They don't care about you," the voice tried one last time. "Your sister didn't even call." And that almost stopped me. Because it was true. My sister hadn't called. Maybe the test results were bad, and she didn't know how to tell me. Maybe they were good, and she'd just forgotten. Either way, I wasn't important enough for her to remember. But as I hesitated, I heard something else through the crack. A voice I recognized. "Is she okay?" I saw her car outside and thought I'd check on her. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, the one who sometimes waved when she saw me getting my mail. She'd noticed my car. She'd come looking for me. Someone had noticed. Someone cared enough to check. I grabbed the edges of the crack and pulled with everything I had. The wallpaper tore away in long strips, and light flooded the shrinking room. The mirror pieces on the floor screamed, actually screamed, as the light hit them. The voice was screaming too, but I couldn't understand the words anymore. They were just noise, the sound of something hungry being denied its meal. I squeezed through the crack. Just as the walls slammed together behind me, I woke up on the floor of Mrs. Henderson's study with the worst headache of my life. A paramedic was shining a light in my eyes, asking me questions I couldn't quite process. "Can you tell me your name?" I opened my mouth, but no sound came out at first. My throat felt raw, like I'd been screaming. "Sarah," I finally managed. "Sarah Mitchell." "Good. Do you know where you are?" I looked around. The study looked normal now. Dusty furniture, tables full of knickknacks, people browsing quietly. The mirror, the small mirror that had started everything, lay broken on the floor beside me, just pieces of glass and twisted metal. "The estate sale," I said. "Mrs. Henderson's house. That's right. You had a fall. Hit your head on the corner of this table when you went down." I touched my forehead and felt a bandage. My fingers came away with a little blood. "How long was I out?" "About 10 minutes, the paramedic said. "Your neighbor was worried when she saw your car still here. She found you unconscious." Mrs. Chen stood in the doorway, wringing her hands. When she saw me looking at her, she smiled with relief. "I'm so glad you're okay," she said. "I saw your car outside and thought I'd check on you. When I heard the glass break and then found you on the floor." She shook her head. I was so scared. 10 minutes. I'd been trapped in that nightmare room for what felt like hours, but only 10 minutes had passed in the real world. "We should take you to the hospital," the paramedic said. "Head injuries can be tricky." I nodded, not trusting my voice. As they helped me to my feet, I looked down at the broken mirror. In the fractured pieces, I saw only my own reflection looking back. Tired, scared, but real. No empty eye sockets, no silent screaming. Just me. At the hospital, they ran tests and found nothing seriously wrong. A mild concussion, they said. Some confusion and disorientation were normal. The whole experience was probably just a hallucination brought on by the head injury. That's what the doctor said. That's what I told myself. But as I sat in the emergency room waiting for my discharge papers, my phone rang. It was my sister. "Hey," she said, and she sounded tired. "I'm sorry I didn't call earlier. Mom's test results came back this morning, and I've been trying to figure out how to tell you." My heart stopped. "Is she okay?" "She's fine," my sister said quickly. "Everything's fine. I was scared for a while there, and I didn't want to worry you until I knew for sure. I'm sorry. I should have called right away." I closed my eyes and felt tears sliding down my cheeks. "It's okay," I said. "I understand. Are you all right? You sound funny." "I hit my head today. I'm at the hospital, but I'm fine." "What? Sarah, why didn't you call me? I'm coming over right now." "You don't have to. I'm already in my car." "Which hospital?" I told her, and she said she'd be there in 20 minutes. After I hung up, I sat in the waiting room and thought about what had happened in that room between rooms. The voice had been wrong about some things. My sister did care. She was scared too. Scared of delivering bad news, scared of saying the wrong thing. That's why she hadn't called right away. Not because she'd forgotten about me, but the voice had been right about other things. I was lonely. I did wait for calls that didn't come often enough. I did feel empty sometimes, like there was a hole inside me that nothing could fill. The difference was, now I understood that the emptiness wasn't a flaw. It was just space. Space for new experiences, new relationships, new possibilities. It was only dangerous when I tried to fill it with the wrong things, or when I invited the wrong things to fill it for me. My sister arrived exactly 20 minutes later, breathless and worried. She hugged me carefully, mindful of my head injury, and sat with me while the doctor explained the discharge instructions. "You're staying with me tonight," she said as we walked to the parking lot. "I don't want you alone with a concussion." "I'll be fine. Sarah." She stopped walking and looked at me seriously. "I know I'm not always the best sister. I get caught up in my own life and I don't call enough. But you matter to me. You know that, right?" I nodded, not trusting my voice again. "Good. Now let's go home." We drove past Mrs. Henderson's house on the way to my sister's place. The estate sale was over, the house dark and empty. But as we passed, I could swear I saw a glint of light in one of the upstairs windows, like sunlight reflecting off glass, or like broken mirror pieces, still moving in the darkness, still showing the faces of all the lonely, empty people who had been lured inside over the years. I looked away and didn't look back. That night, staying in my sister's guest room, I thought about the woman in the mirror who told me to fight. She'd been trapped there, but she'd used the last of her strength to help me escape. I wondered, how many others were still in there, still waiting for someone to notice they were missing. But I couldn't save them. I could barely save myself. All I could do was remember the lesson. Emptiness isn't something to be filled by just anything that comes along. Sometimes you have to sit with the loneliness, feel it completely, and wait for the right things to fill the space. Things like a sister who drives across town because you're hurt. Things like a neighbor who notices your car and checks on you. Things like the sound of your phone ringing with a call you've been waiting for. The good things are worth waiting for, even if the waiting hurts sometimes, even if the emptiness feels like it might swallow you whole. Because the alternative, letting something else fill that space, something hungry and ancient and wrong, is so much worse than being lonely. I learned that the hard way. And I never went to another estate sale. But sometimes, late at night, I think about that mirror. About whether it's still there in the ruins of Mrs. Henderson's house, reflecting faces that nobody remembers, showing the lost and forgotten. I try not to think about it too much, but I check on my neighbors now. I call my sister every week, even when I don't have anything important to say. I've learned that the best way to keep the emptiness from becoming dangerous is to fill it slowly, carefully, with real connections to real people. It's not always easy, but it's better than the alternative. So much better than the alternative.